So we had Sicario a couple of years ago, which was I thought it was a really sort of powerful piece of work, starring Emily Blunt, directed by Denis Villeneuve, who I know is now one of your favourite directors, not only from watching his films and liking them, from interviewing him and finding him
delightful,
very charming. Shot by Roger Deakins, who obviously is the great eye, and that Johan Johansson score. So now we have Sicario 2 Soldado, or Day of the Soldado, of the Soldier, depending on which territory you're in.
Sorry, can you just explain that title?
Over here, it's called Sicario 2 Soldado, Soldier. And I think in America or in some other territories, it's called Day of Soldado. To be honest with you, it's neither here nor there. So we now have director Stefano Sollima, shot by Darius Wolski, very fine cinematographer, written by Taylor Sheridan as before. But we don't have Emily Blunt. So the top line of the cast now is Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin. So what we have is, it's interesting. They've talked about it as being not so much a sequel as a standalone film, and we'll come to that. So it's a kind of paranoid story about the US border that taps into particularly sort of Trump era fears. The setup is that in an age in which trafficking people is more profitable than trafficking drugs, the authorities, the government, US government, are particularly alarmed because they think that what's happening is that ISIS terrorists are being brought into the country by coming in through Mexico and being brought across the border. So this brings together a whole bunch of paranoias: the border, Mexico, ISIS, the wall, the travel bans, all those things that are kind of in the news at the moment. Matthew Modine is this slimy government official who enlists Brolin to basically go to Mexico and start a war between cartels, because they figure that the easiest way of dealing with the problem is to get everyone fighting each other, and therefore they will, if they fight each other, they'll become disorganized. So to this end, he enlists Benicio del Toro to kidnap the daughter of a cartel leader on the basis that this will effectively start a civil war between the cartels.
No rules this time. Turning you loose.
How loose?
Carlos Reyes. How's that for loose? It's your chance to get even for your family. When are you gonna help us start a war?
With who?
Everyone.
So it's an odd film, and I went into it. I really liked Sicario. Although I remember when I was reviewing Sicario, I said the interesting thing about it is that what it does is it takes a premise that we have seen, talked about, plenty of times, both in dramas. I mean, there's that brilliant drama Heli, for example, and then there's Cartel Land, and so dramas and documentaries have all sort of addressed this theme. And that sort of, Nietzschean, beyond good and evil, everything is shades of grey. That is fairly well-worn territory. But what Sicario did, I thought, was to take that and to make something sort of new and special out of it. And Sicario also featured, if you remember, that extraordinarily tense scene when they're on the bridge and the cars are, at a standstill. And somebody described it as the scariest car chase ever made when the cars aren't moving. And it's really sort of, grueling stuff. In the case of this, there are some very, very well executed set pieces, and there's some sort of gripping action sequences. And it has all the kind of twists and turns you'd expect in terms of that kind of the moral ambiguity, everything shades of grey. No one comes out of these operations looking dignified. You kind of you look deep into the abyss, and the abyss looks back into you. All that's there. What you don't have is, you don't have the dramatic sucker punch of the original. You have something that actually starts out looking like a very nihilistic thriller, but kind of loses the strength of its convictions later on as it descends into melodrama. You also have, strong performances and a very, very fine cast. Catherine Keener, very, very good cast. But I did miss the presence of Emily Blunt. And what watching Sicario 2 made me do was to think how important Emily Blunt's presence was to that first film, and how much seeing the unfolding story through her eyes, how much her character really did mediate that world. And I definitely sort of felt her absence. And the other thing is that you're dealing with issues that are real push button issues. I mean, when you're talking about the borders and all those kind of things, which right now at the moment, couldn't be more newsworthy. And I'm not entirely sure that the film, there was an interesting, Matthew Modine was quoted as somebody said, do you think Trump would like the movie? And he said, yeah, because he wouldn't have to read, which was a sort of way of deflecting the fact that it's a movie that, that is tapping into all those paranoias. And it is also true that although some people have said that all it does is exploit those paranoias, that actually it does subvert some of them later on down the track. But I did think while I was watching it, okay, what I'm not getting is that vibrant sense before of something which absolutely grabbed me and which I watched the drama through the eyes of the Emily Blunt character. What I thought was it's efficiently done. It's got some good set pieces. It does descend into, there is a bit towards the end that literally made me go, oh, come on. But that's fair enough. So it's okay. It's not, it's a solidly put together, but in the end, doesn't hold. And why I say that when they originally talked about it being a standalone thriller was in a way that is kind of what it is. And the problem is because it is Sicario, of course you're going to compare it to the first Sicario, and it isn't anything like as good as the first Sicario.
Nick Atkins.